Welcome to Financial Issues, where we join reality with truth, helping you make the most of your money by honoring God with your investments. Now listen in as we give you the practical tools and advice you need to become a biblically responsible investor.
Good Friday morning, everybody. Welcome to Financial Issues. Seth here with you this morning. Hey, thanks for joining us for Financial Issues today, folks. It's great to be here with you. Sadly, Shana is not feeling well today. She is recovering from a sickness, so you can be praying for her. Her voice is just feeling a little bit under the weather today, but we're so grateful for Shana. Pray for her as you think of it today, folks. We'll be here for you today, and the phone lines are open, so if you want to call in, the number is 610-363-1110, 610-363-1110. Phone lines are open, and I'd love to hear from you. And actually love to pose a question to you today. If you would like to join the conversation, you're welcome to answer this question. For some of us, it might be a softball. For some of us, it might be a little bit of a tougher question. Should Christians vote? And why or why not? Should Christians vote? And if so, why? If not, why not? I'd love to hear from you. 610-363-1110 on this Rapid Fire Friday, October 25th. Good to be here with you all this morning. Let's open our day in the scriptures. Luke 3, verse 14 says this: soldiers asked him, "And we, what shall we do?" And he said to them, "Do not extort money from anyone by threats or by false accusation, and be content with your wages." That's Luke 3, verse 14. It's not one of the most well-known financial verses in the Bible here, folks, but it's full of great wisdom. Jesus did not say this. This was from John the Baptist. This was actually right around the very beginning of Jesus' ministry. John the Baptist is speaking to Roman soldiers, evidently. He's asked by a group of Roman soldiers about what they should do to flee from the wrath to come. In other words, to prepare for the coming Messiah. And their command is twofold. Don't commit extortion, so don't commit financial ills that will cause people to lose money, essentially stealing. Don't steal from other people. And also be content with your pay. Biblical concepts. It's a good reminder for us, folks, especially when we're tempted to be discontent with the income God has given us. Now, that may be a job for some of us who are younger. Perhaps you're older and you are you have an investment account and you're collecting income, maybe from some income-producing stocks. And it always comes back to, folks, where are our hearts lying? Are we content with what we have, content in all circumstances, or are we discontent? And I do hope that if you're a believer in Jesus Christ, that you will be content with what you have. That's a core tenet of being a good steward, and of our strategy here at the ministry is trusting in God to provide for us what He will, and trusting that He'll provide for us what we need, and also being grateful and thankful when He does give us the things that we don't need, when He gives us more than what we need. It's truly an amazing gift of grace. Well, good to be here with you all, folks. As you know, we are in election season. It's very important. You hear us talk a lot about this on the show. We believe that it is just a vitally important thing for you to consider being a good steward of your vote. That's why I posed the question at the top of the show. If you want to call in, answer that question: should Christians vote? Why or why not? But in less than 2 weeks, November 5th, coming up quickly. And so we want to make sure that you get your hands on a Spineless Weasels t-shirt for a donation of any amount to the ministry. It can be small, it can be large. I'm not going to tell you what amount of money to give. My preference would be that you would give more, of course, but that is not, that's something that's between you and the Lord completely. And so any gift that we get, we will be so pleased with that. And so we want to give you a gift in return. So any donation that you give to the ministry up until Election Day, we will send you a Spineless Weasels t-shirt. We'll also send you a Spineless Weasels tumbler as well. Make sure that you get those shirts quickly, though. We are running out of some sizes. So you got to make sure, if you're maybe someone who's a little bit larger, a little bit smaller, or even if you're average size, we have a limited number of all those sizes. So you got to make sure that you get your t-shirt as soon as you can. You can go to financialissues.org, click that donate button. That'll take you right to the page where you will make your donation. And in that subject line, just make sure to put your shirt size as well. All right, folks, the market's here on this Friday. So yesterday, somewhat of a bounce back day from a couple of days, actually. By the end of the day on Thursday, the Dow Jones couldn't quite shake its tough day on Wednesday. So Wednesday, the Dow had its worst day since the month of September. Thursday, it was not as bad, but still finished in negative territory at 1/3% down. But the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ were positive. The S&P 500 finished 1/5% in the positive, and the NASDAQ finished 0.75% in the positive yesterday. Early this morning, oil was hanging right around $71 a barrel, and that's about where it sits right now as well. It's actually a little higher than it was when I checked before the show started. The U.S. 10-year Treasury yields, which really have been kind of steering the direction that the markets have been going this week, down a little bit from where they were. So they were up around 4.25% earlier this week. They're down now under 4.25 percentage points, and the markets seem to be liking that. The pre-markets, as we sit this morning to close the week, all in positive territory. Wall Street is looking to finish the week strongly, but likely will be heading for a weekly decline. We are also in the midst of earnings season, folks. We had Tesla reported earnings yesterday and had a pretty decent time of it. And then not much else to report this week from earnings, though. Next week we'll get a little bit more in that regard. But for now, let's get to some news headlines to start off our show. Sam, what do we have here from some very interesting comments that the 45th President Donald Trump made on his re-election campaign trail? What did he say?
That's right. We've been talking today. The whole topic you're asking our callers today is whether Christians should be voting in this year's election. Something we've talked about on the show, how quite a few Christians are actually thinking, I might sit this one out. There was that Barna poll recently that believed that somewhere around 30 to 35 million, I think it was, Christians are saying, I'm not feeling too enthusiastic about Harris or Trump. Both of them upset me on various issues, especially abortion. Yeah. We've hit Trump quite a bit on the abortion issue on this show, but Trump's trying to change that, saying, there's other issues that Christians need to care about, specifically the trans issue. On Monday, he was speaking, I think it was in North Carolina, don't quote me on that, but he said, I'm going to crack down on this issue and not let this be a topic, especially talked about in schools. We do have that clip.
On day one, I will sign an executive order banning schools from promoting critical race theory or transgender insanity. I will take historic action to defeat the toxic poison of gender ideology and reaffirm that God created two genders, male and female. I will keep men out of women's sports. I will sign a law banning child sexual mutilation in all 50 states. Won't happen anymore.
So you heard there, Seth, he's going to ban CRT. He's going to ban gender ideology in school. On top of that, he's going to ban those horrific gender surgeries for children. And just as a cherry on top, unrelated, he did end that whole speech saying, and by the way, doggone it, we're just also going to say Merry Christmas too, which was kind of fun. Made me a little happy. What do you think of that,
That's
Seth?
Fun stuff. It's very interesting, Sam. Folks, I really do think we're just trying to let the candidates speak for themselves here. We've seen several clips earlier this week now, Sam. We heard Kamala Harris on Tuesday with Shana. She didn't come on our show. She would never come on our show. But we
wrangled the big one, didn't we?
Yeah, right, exactly.
That'd be something.
Yeah. We heard her, when someone said Jesus is king at her rally while she was talking about abortion, we heard her response. We heard J.D. Vance's response to almost the same thing. Now Trump's response as well. Folks, the candidates are speaking for themselves here. And Sam, I think it is accurate to say, there's always going to be some kind of pandering to your basis, for sure. Yeah. But on the other side, I feel like they're so polarized on those opposite sides at this point that we really do just have to let them speak for themselves. And, hearing Trump say that, very, very interesting. So we're trying to let the candidates speak for themselves here, folks, but you can see it. That's really what we're looking like here as we have that choice coming up in about a week and a half. Very, very important. I would love to hear from all of you. Sam, let me ask you, should Christians vote?
Well, I think that, the whole topic of our show is stewardship. Yeah. So I think something really important to think about is, what does Scripture say about government? We hear all the time in the New Testament how we need to respect our leaders, respect the institutions that God has established for government. And, we tend to talk about that, how we need to honor our leaders. And that's true. Yeah. That does go that far, and that's something that we need to do. But you got to remember that in the U.S., we have a very different structure of government than what they had in New Testament times. In the U.S., the people are sovereign. We are actually the boss of our own government. That's something unique in the entire history of the world for the most part. So in a way, God has instituted us to lead the country, to be the ones to decide what direction the country's going. So if you're deciding not to vote, in my opinion, I'm not the first one to say this, plenty of people have expressed this before, but you're in a way abdicating the God-given duty you've been given to lead this country.
That's well said, Sam. We were talking about that earlier this week, and of course Sam is referencing Romans 13, which normally, yes, absolutely, that is applied to submitting to the governing authorities. But Sam, I love what you said there, that verse also, in a way, because of our governing structure, it applies to us as well, that we have that authority. You have got to exercise that God-given authority that you have over your, over your country, to be a good steward of your country. I absolutely agree. I think you all can hear what our opinion is. Absolutely, we believe Christians should vote, but we still want to hear from you.
Yeah, we don't want to give away the answer to the call-in, right, Seth?
That's exactly right. Yeah, but we're showing our hand a little bit early here, of course. Folks, phone lines are open, 610-363-1110. We'd love to hear from you. I've seen some on the chat as well. We'll get to some more questions and comments here. We'll also get some more headlines coming up here on this Rapid Fire Friday. Good to be here with you all. 610-363-1110, number to call in. We'll be right back after this.
I want to make a point. No matter what happens, I'll always be there for you.
I know.
How is Timothy Plan continuing to lead the fight as you guys now enter your fourth decade of leading this fight of biblically responsible investing?
We've been too silent for too long, and we can no longer be silent. You stand up, like Ronald Reagan said, we're only one generation away from losing all of our liberty. Yeah. It has to be fought for. I wish it didn't. And you can fight for it. You don't need guns and ammunition and that. You can fight for it, especially with your dollars, because it's always about the money. And when the money starts impacting people, they start paying attention. When we launched this, they said it couldn't be done, but here we are 30 years later. They said you couldn't get competitive returns, but here we are.
What a tremendous testament of God's grace.
Go to financialissues.org/Timothy Plans to learn more about Timothy Plan.
Folks, I so appreciated Sam's comments in that last section there. It's really a good way to think about your country, that you're to be a good steward of your country. Listen, we don't live in an anarchy. We don't live in a place where there is no government. We have governing rulers above us. But we do have, and I really do think Sam was exactly right. This is a unique situation we have in our country in the history of the world, where we have some significant level of stewardship over our own country. And so to not vote, I really do believe that's forfeiting that stewardship that God has given to us. We have got to, as Christians need to be the leaders in this, the forefront. And I really do believe this election is going to come down to the Christian vote. It really is. So really important here for us, folks. I hope that this is getting you excited as well. You live in an important time, and your actions have very important consequences. And some people will get nervous about that. My hope is that Christians will be excited by it. Because this is this is not a time to sit back. This is a time for greatness. This is a time for great faithfulness and great courage. And I believe that the Financial Issues family is well positioned to be on the forefront when we look back in the history books. And hopefully this is a turning point in our country that we can see, by God's grace, I was able to play a small part in that. So really, really good stuff here.
Seth, can I say something
Sam,
about
please,
that?
go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to let everyone in our audience know that I was looking at the polling today. For the first time this election cycle, really since Kamala Harris has entered the race,
Wow.
in the general election polling, not just in the state polling. So that's just to emphasize that Christians really do have a say here, because it's so close that everyone has a say. So Christians need to get out there and make their voices heard, because we really can make a difference, as you said.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's well said, Sam. Thank you for that. Very interesting here, folks. Going to be real interesting. We had a quick question coming in from Joe. I believe it might be Julie. It's either Joe or Julie here in Arkansas, saying, how much cash do most people keep at home in view of possible bank closure? I know for me, Joe, I don't have a specific amount that I would tell people, but I would say enough that you feel comfortable in some kind of emergency situation, so enough to get gas, enough to get you somewhere that you need to be if you can't get money out of the bank, for example. I would not go overboard with it, but I would say enough money to be able to help you in some kind of emergency like that. Again, wouldn't go overboard, but I think that'd be my answer there. Sorry, I can't give you an actual numeric answer, but I think that's a good kind of practice, good wisdom practice to get into there. So a couple more headlines here, folks, that are pretty interesting. I saw this one this morning. Pre-election nerves are leading a lot of Americans to close their wallets until they know who will have the nuclear codes next year. That's somewhat important, I guess. And that was according to a Federal Reserve report this week. Pretty remarkable reaction, Fed officials said, partially because of how close the race is. According to the Fed, many construction, manufacturing, and textile businesses reported declining demand across the country in September. And some producers and builders are pausing material orders and new projects until the dust settles on the election. Very interesting. Almost a third of Americans tasked with financial decisions, for example, CFOs, have postponed, canceled, or stripped down near and long-term investment plans this year due to election anxiety. The vibes really are wait and see here. Half of Americans think the outcome of this race for the White House will significantly move the needle of their net worth. Uncertainty for the future as well among small business owners, also at a nearly 40-year high. That's per the National Federation of Independent Businesses. Sam, this hits exactly what we were saying earlier, that this election is so important, but not just from a spiritual perspective, folks, from an economic perspective as well. Everybody is thinking about this for sure. I saw a meme this morning on social media. It was pretty funny, and I'm just going to say it and leave it there, but it was, we're waiting in about a week and a half to see whether in 2025 we'll be able to buy a new house or we'll go into World War III. One of the two. and that's basically what it's looking like. That's what a lot of people feel like, Sam.
Which one do I want?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So very interesting here. This is one of the most important economic elections in the history of our country, I think. Sam, speaking of the economy, give us an update on where Trump is on the economy in particular. Who is leading right now?
Yeah, so we have a poll from CNBC that might answer some of the questions about what you were talking about earlier of what exactly are voters waiting for? What does it matter who's going to be the president or not? If you're going to spend, you're going to spend. If you're not going to. Yeah. But here's a little bit of an explanation of what voters are thinking. According to this CNBC survey, voters say they will be better off financially if Trump wins 42% to 24%. That's a massive margin for Donald Trump in favor of his economic policy. So what that tells me is that a lot of voters are saying, okay, if Donald Trump wins, then I can go back into spending mode, because my guess is that my economic situation is going to be quite a bit better, versus if Kamala Harris wins, at least according to this data. Only 29% said that they think their finances are going to be basically the same no matter who wins or not. What's interesting, though, is despite this survey, Trump, according to CNBC, still only has a 2% lead over Harris. That's 48% to 46%. That's basically on par with what I mentioned in the last segment. Trump and Harris still remain tied nationally. Yeah. Last I checked in the Real Clear Politics polling average in the battleground states, however, Trump does have a slim lead. That's 0.9% in the generic battleground states. He does lead, according to their polling, in every single battleground state, however.
Yeah. Sam, from your experience, so back when we were doing FISM News, I believe FISM News was going on during the 2020 election. Give us your experience. What is a good way to read all of these polls? Because there's a bunch of different polls that are going on. You said state polls, national polls. What's a good way to read these?
You know, it's really difficult to know how to read them, because the question that a lot of people are asking is, Was 2020 an outlier in the way that mail-in balloting affected the polling, or is that going to set the precedent? Was that a watershed moment for how elections are going to be held going forward? It looks like it's going to be a little bit of both based on the mail-in data I've seen so far. It's not nearly as big as 2020, but it is a lot bigger than what we've seen in the past, so that's going to raise a lot of questions. Also, it remains to be seen how well Republicans have caught on to that early voting game that Democrats successfully did in 2020. Again, based on the early data that we're seeing, it does look that like Republicans have woke up to that quite a bit. I'll also say this, comparing to previous elections, I don't have the numbers right in front of me, but if you're a Trump supporter, you should be over the moon by the fact that Donald Trump is just tied with Kamala Harris, because in 2020 and in 2016, Donald Trump was underwater in the national polling, absolutely getting destroyed by the Democrats. And we know that in 2016, he beat Hillary Clinton. And then in 2020, it was by the narrowest margins that election was decided. So what that tells me, we'll have to wait and see if this actually turns out. If Trump's tied, that probably means he's actually ahead.
Yeah, very interesting, Sam. Thank you for that. Folks, all the stuff that we're telling you, of course, is to try to equip you to be a good steward of your vote as well. We're a stewardship ministry. We want to be good stewards of our finances, of the gospel first, but also of your country, as we've been saying. We might have time to get to a couple of comments here, but before we do that, folks, I got a special treat for you. We have a fantastic Dan rant here that I'd like to play right now on the need, and this is kind of to switch gears a little bit, but I think it's an appropriate switch, on the need for strength in the pulpit. So on yesterday's show, we talked about this black-robed regiment of preachers. A couple years ago, Dan was talking about an interview he had done with Dr. Michael Youssef about this concept of revival and how everybody wants revival. We would love revival in this country. Well, here's the problem. Revival is not going to happen unless heart change happens first. And that starts with the pastors. That starts from the pulpit into the churches for the Christians to then lead the culture. Here's our founder, Dan Celia, with a great rant.
I was doing an interview with Dr. Michael Youssef. And this was some years ago. And you'll remember 5-6 years ago, everybody, maybe it was longer, I lose track of time. You know, everything was about revival. We got to have revival. And who's going to lead? What are we going to do? And I was I'll be honest with you, I use it all the time. But if I heard 2 Chronicles 7:14, one more time, I was going to throw up. Because nobody understood that it was a conditional verse. Nobody understand if. And I was very sour on this whole revival thing. And I felt so guilty, like I was sinning against God. So I'm sitting there with Michael Youssef and Dr. Youssef, and they're setting up the cameras and stuff. And I'm saying to him, I said, I got to ask you this question. And I told him how I felt about this whole revival thing. And I said, I really feel bad. I feel like I'm confessing my sin. And he said, ask me that during the interview. And I thought, oh, he's going to rip me during this interview. But anyway, he said, we were talking about Webster, Daniel Webster. We were talking about a great statesman. And I was talking about Daniel Webster, and I said, if we lost these, the thing about Webster was he was so fearful in a great way of God. He measured everything he did in the eyes of God. It was a great thing. Yes. And we've lost that today, and we got on. And I said, now we're trying, everybody's talking about revival and all. What do you think? He said, and this is what he said. He said, Dan, we will never have revival in this country because we, and he was pointing to himself, we, the pastors, were the problem.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
He said, until we're the ones that caused all this. Because 100 years ago, we started to question the divinity of God. 50 years ago, we started to question the inerrancy of Scripture.
Yes.
And he's the one that gave me that permeated the pews. And now this is what we have. And until we, the pastors, get on our knees at the pulpit and have a true, sincere, he said it like this, not some emotional, temporary remorse, but real repentance. Until that happens, we can't have revival because it's the pastors that got to lead us.
Folks, there really is we cannot lose the fact that the spiritual and the material worlds are so interconnected. And I hope that you're seeing this as you join our show and you look at what all these companies are doing and how we're seeing companies coming back to a good place. And we're seeing other companies perhaps moving even further into what we would call things that we don't want them to do. But I hope that you can see, as we talk about the election as well, all of this is related to the spiritual. This is a spiritual issue, a spiritual fight. I cannot hammer that home to you enough. Heard a recent analogy. It was so good that the connection between the spiritual world and the material world is much like a tapestry. And if you pull on one thread in one, it's going to affect the other one. So what we see happening before us in the physical world is a result of the battle that's going on in the spiritual world. Praise God, we have the victory for this, folks. We got a great rest of the program coming up. I hope that you'll stick with us. We'll hear from Craig Haugaard with the Ag Report on the other side. Some great content from Shana as well. The conversation has been a delight this morning, folks, and I do hope that you will stick with us as well here on Financial Issues. If you have to leave us, we hope you have a wonderful day of worship on Sunday, and we'll be back next week. For the rest of you, we got a lot more Financial Issues coming up right after this break. Stick with us. We'll be right back.
Is inflation, national debt, and volatility in the markets causing you anxiety? Well, you're not alone. I'm Shana, host of Financial Issues, a nationally syndicated, biblically based program. During our daily program, we help you navigate the current financial climate and provide valuable insights so that you can be a good steward with the money that God has blessed you with. The Bible tells us not to worry and to seek wise counsel, and that's why Financial Issues is here.
Join our partnership community by visiting financialissues.org/join.
Hi, this is Shana, the host of Financial Issues. The Financial Issues family is so blessed to have saved tens of thousands of babies, all thanks to the generous support of you, our listeners and viewers. For $140, you can sponsor 5 ultrasounds. Please go to preborn.org, that's preborn.org, or financialissues.org and click on the preborn logo. Save a baby, save a life.
Our founder, Dan Celia, often lamented the weakness of politicians on both sides of the aisle, having no spine to stand up for what is right.
Our generation has raised up a bunch of weasels. We don't have the people that have fortitude. Oh, they may have some faith, but they don't have the fortitude that is needed.
Where did all those spines on Capitol Hill go anyway?
There are so-called leaders in Washington that have a title of a leader, so they think they are a leader, and they couldn't lead their way out of a paper bag.
For a limited time, Financial Issues will send you a No More Spineless Weasels shirt or travel mug with any contribution. We just ask that you consider covering the cost of shipping and handling. Get your Spineless Weasel shirt today. Support Financial Issues and let everyone know how floppy politicians can be. Go to financialissues.org/donations to get your shirt or travel mug. Again, that's financialissues.org/donations.
As a member of Samaritan Ministries, your monthly share is a gift that goes directly to a real person in need. While that share takes care of the financial portion of a need, medical needs are complex and include the physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual aspects as well. While the financial gift is important, if we stop there, we miss an opportunity to minister to the whole need of our brother or sister. When you faithfully pray and send a note of encouragement and scripture along with your share, those words become a vessel of God's continued healing and blessing on the receiver. And the impact it has is immeasurable, bringing glory to God and provision and unity to His church. Glorify God with your health care. Send a note this month.
Thanks for being with us today. I hope this can be an edifying show for you. This is a best of Financial Issues.
Securities offered through G.A. Reppel & Company, a registered broker-dealer and investment advisor, member FINRA and SIPC. Opinions expressed by Shana are hers alone and are for informational purposes only and do not necessarily represent those of G.A. Reppel or the outlet on which you are listening. You should consider how the information applies to your situation prior to personally implementing it and consult any financial professional you work with to make sure it's applicable to your financial plan.
Welcome back to Financial Issues. It is Rapid Fire Friday. We've got copies of The Fear of Money, the book and the workbook that we'll send out if you get into the call queue and ask us a question here live on the show. The number 610-363-1110. We do have Noah, who's been waiting so patiently. Hi, Noah. You're live on Financial Issues.
Hey, how are you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good. Thank you so much, and good morning, and thanks for taking my call.
Absolutely.
Thanks for calling, Noah.
Yeah, hey, Seth. So I'm 37, and I'm in the aggressive model, and so we're closing in on having about $10,000 saved in our emergency fund, and so we were just wondering if we should keep that cash at home, in the bank, or like in a money market.
Yeah, that's a great question. So you may want to consider keeping about half of it at home, since you've got 6 months, so maybe 3 months worth. Keep at home as long as you have a safe place to keep it. So the risk of keeping it at home, of course, is that somebody could steal it.
Right.
You know, if your house caught on fire, it could burn up. So
if you got little kids, they might eat it.
That's true.
That's right.
I hope not. That's really dirty. Immune builder, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, you should keep some at home just in case of emergencies. You're in Illinois. I live on the coast, so you know we're always in hurricane season. You know, looking at needing to if electricity goes out, the ATMs are out. You know, there's all kind of national emergencies or natural disasters that could happen, I guess, anywhere. So it's good to have some at home that you could get to in case of a real emergency like that. And then I would certainly keep some probably at the same financial institution that you keep your operating fund or like your checking account. You know, most people have an account where they receive money in, that they do all their bill paying from that. So if you have it attached to that, it's easy just to make a phone call or maybe get online and transfer some money over if you, if you do have an emergency.
Okay, yeah, thank you. And do you mind if I ask a second question?
Go ahead.
All right, so it's related to the tracker tool. We just reallocated the tracker tool yesterday, and we just noticed a lot of the sectors were off from what we originally chose. I didn't know if there were like any glitches going on with that. And then just another example is when we were done, it showed that we had 20% in healthcare, which we only have 5%. So I didn't know if there was just anything going on with the tracker tool right now.
You know, we kind of are hearing that a little bit. I haven't had a lot of time to spend looking at it. Now, one thing I'll say, if it's showing that you're off, you may have something miscoded. So just go back and look at everything that's coded healthcare.
Yeah, okay.
And see, the other thing that could make it off is when you get to the bottom of your tracker where it gives you a total of what your portfolio is, compare that number to what's in your brokerage account. So if you have, a symbol or something in a that shouldn't be there when you're putting in your symbols, it's not going to calculate how much you have. So if your total number is off, it's going to, going to show skewed as well. But so we'll dig into that and we'll get to the bottom of, if there's any glitches happening on our end. But thanks for letting us know.
Yeah, well, thank you guys so much. And we just appreciate all that you guys do. And just God bless your team.
How'd you find us, Noah?
Oh, it was my mom. My mom, Sheila. She brought me on to you.
Awesome. All right. Well, thanks.
Thank you, Noah. God bless, buddy.
Oh, yeah. Thank you so much, guys.
Glad to have you.
Yes, sir.
All right. Who's next, Seth?
We've got, next up, here's Mark from Wisconsin. Good morning, Mark. You're live on Financial Issues.
Good morning. Thank you for taking my call. I'm a recent partner.
Welcome.
And
welcome.
Thank you. I just desire to to serve God in every way, and this is kind of the last piece of finances that needs to be taken care of, and I'm grateful that I have you to seek wisdom from today. I have a traditional IRA account that I would like to roll over. I opened a account with a discount broker and walked through the process, and as I got down through the pages of filling it all out, I came to a place that I put in my information, to click to the next one where it says next, decide where to transfer your assets, and I get a big red exclamation point that says this account is currently ineligible for transfers due to restriction. So I called their phone number, and it turned into a circle where it brought me back to this. So I was wondering what that restriction could be.
So it's a traditional IRA account. Did you open a traditional IRA, or did you open a...
Yes, that's what I put it in as. It said select your account type, so I put in traditional IRA.
Okay.
And
go ahead.
That's where I'm at. I'm stuck right there. So what am I missing?
It's hard to say. Do they have a 1-800 number for their support?
They do, and I contacted them, and it was a computer-generated process. They said that they would send me forms, but then referred me back to where I currently am on the page.
Now, the account that you have existing, is it with an employer? Is it a 401k, or is it already in an IRA?
It's already in an IRA. It's in a Baird account right now, and I'd like to move it out of there.
Well, I know that you have to have registration to be able to move it. So are you putting your name in exactly like it is on the other IRA account?
I thought so. I will have to triple check that, but I certainly
double and triple check that. Also just double check all your information, because sometimes did it go all the way through, like it already tried to get the account, now it's telling you that it can't, or you're just kind of stuck in the initial process?
I'm stuck in the initial process. I'm right at the point where I could do the next step to get the account moved, but it won't allow me to do that.
Yeah. I would suggest, trying to call support. I find it hard to believe that they don't have a live person that you can get support from, especially because it sounds like a technical issue. Doesn't sound like, anything's really wrong. If you've got an IRA, trying to move it to an IRA and all of the information's the same, sounds to me like some kind of technology issue.
Okay, I will try them again.
Okay.
Just don't want to make it any worse than what it probably is.
I hear you. Well, it sounds like you're doing a great job, Mark. How did you find us?
Local radio station on CSN network.
CSN.
Nice.
All right.
Good stuff, man.
Wonderful. Well, Mark, we're so glad to have you. We're so glad that you're desiring to honor God in the way that you invest, and it's a great thing that we can be here to help and encourage you.
Yeah. Keep on calling, man, if you got questions.
You came on the air so that I never knew that you were out there.
Well, great. Now you do. Tell all your friends. Well, folks, we are going to hear from Craig Haugaard with the Ag Report. Then phone lines will be back open, 610-363-1110.
This is Craig Haugaard with your Financial Issues Ag Update for October 25th. Well, corn was stronger yesterday as export sales came in at a very impressive 141.8 million bushels. Now, we've had about a 4-day rally so far, and there has been a little uptick in producer selling as a result of this rally. The expectation is that we will really see that selling accelerate if we can get close to the $4.50 per bushel. Yesterday at the closing bell, we had December corn 2.5 cents higher at $4.21.5. half. Beans started out on a firmer tone with the strong export sales report, along with an additional sale that was just announced by the USDA yesterday. However, the buying enthusiasm faded and prices faded along with it. Exports are now running 8% ahead of last year, with the USDA projecting a year-over-year increase of 9%. The closing bell, January beans were unchanged at 10.05. The world wheat markets are quiet, with Russia offerings unchanged. Here in the U.S., the winter wheat belt is set for some additional moisture in the next 10 days. That should continue to build up crop health ahead of it going into dormancy. At the closing bell, Minneapolis December wheat was 2.5 cents higher, $6.18 per bushel. Kansas City rose by 1.5 pennies to close at $5.87, and Chicago was 3 cents higher at $5.81.5. Cotton futures continue to be range-bound. Yesterday's close found the December futures 98 points lower at 71.53. Livestock futures had a mixed day. December live cattle were $1.37.5 higher at $189.25 per hundredweight. January feeder cattle rose by $1.70 as they settled at $245.52.5 per hundred. And December lean hog futures dropped by $1.52.5, ending the session at $78.65 per hundredweight. Class 3 milk futures resumed their recent downward trajectory. At the closing bell, we had November futures down 13 points, ending the day at 20.27. Well, this has been Craig Haugaard with your Financial Issues Ag Update. We'll be right back with more financial issues after this.
Our founder, Dan Celia, often lamented the weakness of politicians on both sides of the aisle, having no spine to stand up for what is right.
Our generation has raised up a bunch of weasels. We don't have the people that have fortitude. Oh, they may have some faith, but they don't have the fortitude that is needed.
Where did all those spines on Capitol Hill go anyway?
There are so-called leaders in Washington that have a title of a leader, so they think they are a leader, and they couldn't lead their way out of a paper bag.
For a limited time, Financial Issues will send you a No More Spineless Weasels shirt or travel mug with any contribution. We just ask that you consider covering the cost of shipping and handling. Get your Spineless Weasel shirt today. Support Financial Issues and let everyone know how floppy politicians can be. Go to financialissues.org/donations to get your shirt or travel mug. Again, that's financialissues.org/donations.
Navigating through investment options can be challenging, especially when you're determined to uphold your God-given values. Every dollar you invest is a vote for the world that you want to live in. Let your values guide your investment decisions and help to shape the culture in which we live. Become a beacon of light and pave the way with biblically responsible investing. Timothy Plan, where faith and finance collide. Before investing, carefully consider the fund's investment objectives, risks, charges, and expenses of the investment company. This and other important information can be found in the fund's prospectus. To obtain a copy, visit timothyplan.com or call 800-846-7526. Read each prospectus carefully before investing. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal.
Thanks for listening to this Best of Financial Issues.
The opinions and recommendations expressed on this program do not necessarily represent the opinions of the station or any of the program sponsors. Additionally, all products or services offered by the program sponsors may not be known by the program.
Welcome back to Financial Issues. We're so glad that you're sticking with us today on this Rapid Fire Friday. Our phone lines are open. We may be able to get one more call in after James. If you want to get in the queue at 610-363-1110. So let's go to James. James is calling from Mississippi. Hi, James.
Good morning, Shana.
Good morning.
I had never been able to talk to you, but I'd heard you with Dan when you were being alternately hosted on the show when Dan was on there. And Seth, I had never been able to talk to him, but I've listened to y'all's show ever since I found Dan in 2019.
Wow.
Thank you, James. Awesome, brother.
Yeah, y'all are wonderful. And the show is wonderful. It has saved my life, really. I was a railroad construction guy, and I was on my way to Louisiana to do a railroad track inspection for a plant, and I was searching through the radio, and I found Dan's show on there, and I got to listening to it, and he was so strong about the Lord and having your money invested in the right things and the way the Lord blessed him and blessed the financial plan that he had, that he produced. I said, well, I'll listen to this guy again. And so I about a week, I listened to him every day. And then I decided to call and talk to him. And sure enough, he took my call. And I explained my poor little situation that, I didn't have but about $2,500 that I could try to grow and get an investment or whatever with the half of my retirement. And he took an enormous amount of time explaining to me about how to do it and what to do and the stocks and everything and all to invest in. And I didn't know anything about the stock market. I didn't know anything about investing or anything. I just always put my money in savings or whatever. And so I was really kind of scared, but he assured me that if I had the right money in some of these plans that he recommended, that my money would be safe and it would grow. Well, sure enough, I took that $2,500 and followed his program. And then over time, I got to finding out, that you needed to have, at that time, $85 to belong to his program. So I peeled off $85 and sent it in and got to be a member. And then later on, I got to hearing about income stocks and dividends and stuff he was talking about. And so I said, well, they pay money on the dividends. So if I could get enough of them stocks, maybe they would help me pay that $85 to financial issues. And then I would still make some money. So I picked 4 or 5 of them and put a little money in them and then kept putting a little money in them. And sure enough, it all turned out to be that they would pay my fees to financial issues. And then now, when it went up a little bit, I do the same thing, and those stocks still pay my fees to financial issues. And nice. It's true. For the money's worth and the advice and everything that y'all get from God and the Holy Spirit about these stocks, it is wonderful value compared to what the rest of those people want to charge for some financial advice. It's wonderful.
Thank you for that, James.
Thanks, brother.
We are blessed to hear of your story and how the ministries helped you. And I heard a lot of things that in what you said right there, that just the principles from the scripture, little by little. You've been faithful. You've been obedient. You worked with what you had. You put it to work. You weren't discouraged by, starting with what you considered to be a little bit. And, you've really seen the principles at work. So thanks for calling in and sharing that. I know you encouraged somebody today.
Yeah, I got $24,000 now.
That's awesome.
And, Amazing.
And I've been in it since 2019. And the stocks that y'all say sell, I sell. And the stocks that y'all say buy, dividends and stuff, I buy. And it pays my fees, and I make money. And it truly was from the Holy Spirit and God that they gave Dan this information. He was consistent and honored God, and y'all got a wonderful financial ministry.
Well, thank you, James.
James, thank you, brother.
Thank y'all.
You're a blessing to us,
Bless
man.
y'all.
Yes, sir.
And it's because of the contributions of partners like James that we get to continue to be on the air, that we get to continue to expand the number of stations that we're on. We recently went on NRB TV and just in June, so just a few short months ago, and this is an opportunity to come into 11 million more households. So that people can hear the message of biblically responsible investing, to hear how you honor God by screening out the companies that are using shareholder dollars to support ungodly agendas. So we're grateful for James's testimony, and I hope that encourages you. James, it sounds like he's been faithful. He started with a little. He's continued to add to it. Those dollar cost averaging principles that we talk about, and he's stuck with the companies that he's bought, and he's had some good success. So I'm so glad that he called in and shared his testimony. I'm sure that he has encouraged someone today. All right, Seth, we got a couple more minutes. What can we
Yeah,
what
we
can
do,
we get
Shannon.
done
We
here?
have a couple of questions here that we can get to here. Let's start with Sherry. Sherry's on Ask Shana, age 70 years old, saying, would this be a good time to make a CD ladder that goes up to and includes the 5-year CD? For example, to make a CD ladder that includes 1 year, 2 year, 3, and 5 year. FISM has helped me tremendously. A big thanks to everyone. Sherry, thank you for that. What do you think, Shana, for Sherry?
Well, I think I'd rather see you expand into some preferred stocks. So we recently made just a little tweak in the strategy to where we now are including the preferred stocks with fixed income. And, we're already starting to see the 6 month to 2 year is where we were building the ladder, because that's where the best rates are. I think the best rates are still right there, but I think I would rather see you, rather than do a 5-year CD, which I suspect, I haven't looked today, but the rates for 5-year have been lower. So I'd rather see you maybe expand into some preferreds.
Awesome. Next one up here, Shannon, is Pete. Pete is saying, in the past, I think I heard you say that TM59 and ETF7 can sometimes be used instead of other recommended Timothy funds to help fill a sector that might not be an intuitive match from our perspective. Would you please explain again how TM59 and ETF7 work, their goals, and whether one might be used in lieu of the other under certain circumstances or for certain asset allocation models? Pete is 65, Shannon.
Okay. So TM59, these are both defensive positions. So TM59 is a mutual fund that is defensive in nature. So it invests in a lot of sectors of the economy that tend to do well when the economy isn't, sort of like the path that I think that we're headed in right now. And this particular fund has had a pretty good return lately because I think we have been heading into that cycle of the business cycle that part of the business cycle where we start to see things slow down a bit. That fund also has the ability to hold metals. So if you have interest in, we get lots of calls, people calling us about should we own gold or silver or things like that. That is a way to get exposure from a level where professionals are deciding, how much to go into there. The ETF, on the other hand, is sort of uses some hedges. So it looks at income producing stocks, and then it uses some hedges in there to reduce market volatility so that the volatility is sort of stripped out and you're left with that income stream. So it is an equity investment, but it tends to work more like fixed income. So it's not a replacement for fixed income, but both of these are very defensive in nature and I think could serve you well in their recommended allocations for your model.
All right, folks, that is the end of Rapid Fire Friday. Lord willing, we will be here next week to remind you that time's getting short, the Master is coming back, and we want to help you be found a good and faithful steward, honoring God in the way that you invest. We hope that you have a wonderful day of worship on Sunday and that we can gather back again here together next week for more financial issues. Consider becoming a partner. Check us out at financialissues.org.
If we ever forget that we're one nation under God, then we will be a nation gone under.
Thank you for joining us. This has been